Michael McDowell, welcome back to Sports Spectrum, sir. Congratulations, and how are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm doing incredible. As you can imagine, such a neat opportunity to be a part of it and to just experience it all. I feel very fortunate, and it's been a whirlwind. There's no doubt. There's been some really great moments in the last few days, and so we're just trying to take it all in and enjoy it, and just kind of it's a lot. It can be overwhelming for sure.
Well, that's what I want to get into a little bit. So it's 4 days ago as we record this, and we're going to release this today, that you won the Daytona 500. So in the best way that you can in a small amount of time that we have, describe what the last, I guess, 100 hours have been like for you.
um, I think that, if you just go to when we won the race and they said that we won, you go to that emotion and that feeling. That's just pure excitement, right? Like you can't even really put it all into words. You don't even really know how to respond. You don't know what to do, like it's just like you have so much like excitement. And then I would say just a few hours after that and doing media and kind of, you get an opportunity just to process a little bit. And so the processing it a little bit it made me just feel very humble and just thankful and grateful. And then that kind of led to like a very, I don't know, like a somber feeling of like, man, there's so many people that have helped me get here. But more than anything, of just like the journey that God's had me on through this whole process. And, the relationships he's allowed me to build and the opportunities that he's provided. And it always hasn't looked really good. It hasn't always looked shiny and fun, but God's walked with me through this entire journey. And then that journey is what makes it sweet, right? Like
Yeah.
I know that anybody that wins the Daytona 500 is just overwhelmed, and there's just so much. But for me, like to have struggled in the sport for that long, to finally have an opportunity to really enjoy and experience it, it's a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, it sounds like it, and you're still going through it, and yet you got to prepare for another race. I'm going to talk about that next race in a second. But you tweeted this picture, I think it was on your Twitter as well, and maybe all of your social medias, of you with the trophy. I think you were on an airplane, or it looked like you were on a plane coming back. How much does that trophy weigh? It did not look like a light trophy where you just kind of pick up a little. No, this looked like it was pretty heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy, and it's kind of hard to carry. I don't know exactly how much it weighs, but I would say it probably weighs 40 pounds.
Okay.
So it's not something that you just throw under your shoulder, that's for sure. But yeah, trophies and rings and watches, and there's all these accolades that come with it, right? And I've always said this, and they are meaningful and they are neat, but man, trophies make terrible gods. They really do. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, it's that experiencing God and knowing his presence in it all is what makes it overwhelming.
Well, that's what I
Um,
want to ask you. Like, go there for a minute and explain kind of what that means to you when you say experiencing his presence in the midst of, the largest, from an outward perspective, the biggest career achievement you can ever get, right? Winning the Daytona 500, and yet still kind of staying connected and experiencing the Lord.
yeah, I think that, it is that journey and that process, without going into a ton of details because we don't have time. But, every year, for the last 10 years, 12 years, I've been in a year to year situation, right?
Yeah.
I haven't had a 5-year contract or, a multi-year contract. And every year I literally I need the Lord to provide the opportunity. And so because of that, I know that it's not me, right? And so there's so many scenarios that I could tell you that would just blow your mind. But the fact that I have a job, I know that God has provided that. And so it's not hard for me to get to that place of feeling the Lord's provision, because I feel like that even before the win, just the fact that I get to be one of 40. And just the way that the Daytona 500 plays out, there's so many things that have to go just right. I
Yeah.
mean, you saw that last lap. It could have gone 17 different ways, but the seas literally parted. I mean, you saw the two race cars, one went right, one went left, and I went right through the middle. I didn't even have to react. I didn't have to respond. I just went through the middle. And so just knowing all that we have been through, and the ups and the downs, and just God's faithfulness, even when it wasn't fun, to have him let me experience the victory of it, is just overwhelming.
I have to imagine too, Michael McDowell, when you go 358 career starts and you finally get that first win, you're age 36 and you grind. This is literally the definition of grinding, what you've been going through the last few years. And again, I'm sure there's a lot more that we'll have to share some other time, maybe in the off season, but God talks to us all the time about being patient. You can see it all over the word when you read it. I have to imagine that this will create one crazy testimony for you of the Lord's patience in your life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people always ask me, "What's your favorite verse?" And I feel not bad, but I feel a little like awkward telling them, and it's James 1. Consider it pure joy, my friends, when you face trials of many kinds. And they're like, "What?
Yeah.
That's your encouragement?" And the reason that is because that is what has literally kept me going. Is that, man, there was times where it really did suck, and I would ask God, like, why? I mean, I'm getting my teeth kicked in, and it's just not fun. Like, what are we doing? And it was through that those times and grinding it out that God was shaping and molding me. But not only that, but I was still having great relationships with people off of the racetrack, and through Bible studies and discipleship, and just so there was more meaning than just going to the racetrack and sucking. And so, and like I said, that was years and years of that. And so it's not the most encouraging scripture, right? But
Yeah.
it goes on to say that the trials and the perseverance, and to not lose faith. And so that's how I was. I knew that one day that I would have an opportunity, and even if I didn't, I still held on to that hope. I think that that's one thing that people kind of mistake, because I'm not a prosperity gospel kind of guy. Like the Lord did all that He needed to do for me to follow Him the rest of my life. He doesn't have to show me anything else.
Right.
And I don't mean the Daytona 500. I just mean in salvation. Like
Yes.
it can be the grind the rest of my life, and it's still enough to pursue the Lord, because all of eternity is at stake, right? And so I don't think about like that the Lord needs to do anything. He doesn't need to do it. He's already done it. But when these things do happen and you get to experience it, it makes it, just so much sweeter.
Well, that's why I tell people we had you on before, and they can go back and listen to the Michael McDowell conversation we had in 2019 before you were a Daytona 500 winner. And you were saying the same things then in
Well,
many
good.
ways in your relationship with God that you're saying now. So that's proof right there that this is not a prosperity gospel type of conversation, which I'm with you. I'm not a prosperity gospel guy at all. But God does promise to honor us if we, make sure that we honor Him with our words and our actions. And I'm really fascinated for you when you go. I don't think I asked you this the last time. Do you have a time of prayer, quiet time with the Lord before you race? And if so, I'd be really curious to know what that looked like, maybe on a Sunday like February 14th, before you go on and win the Daytona 500. Do you have that sort of rhythm or discipline that you
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. So it that is it would blow your mind, and I'll figure out how to share it with you. But um, yeah, I try to have quiet times daily, right? And I just want to just throw this out there for all your listeners. That is messy and inconsistent, and I don't do it. And
Yeah.
there's been plenty of times where I put a date on it every time I do it, and there's times where I go, I cannot believe it's been a week or it's been 2 weeks since I've had a quiet time. So I don't want anybody out there to feel like I'm saying that I got this, because I don't.
Sure.
But I did have a few quiet times the week leading up to the 500, and I did that morning, and um, so I had my quiet time. Race happens, all the stuff, all the craziness, all the emotion, all of it, right?
Yeah.
And experiencing God and knowing it, but I never thought about that quiet time. whatever reason, it just kind of slipped my mind, right? And so yesterday I sat down to have a quiet time. And the reason why is this, it's overwhelming right now. I mean, interview after interview, interview after interview. And I just know that this is a very dangerous place to be, is that as you're distracted, we know that there's an enemy that literally wants to kill, steal, and destroy. And so
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, man, I just need to make sure that I am not losing sight and I'm staying grounded in this whirlwind of craziness, right? And so I opened up my journal, I write it out, my quiet times. Yeah, I feel like doing that is super important for me. It's just helped me a tremendous amount. And when I opened it, it was on February 14th, and I just read it and I just started weeping and I just lost it. And I think that, and I shared it with a few of my buddies that are in the Bible study and some of my close friends. And, but I'll give you a highlighted version. I got to look at my phone here. I took a picture of it.
Go for it.
Um,
Yeah.
and, I was kind of like in one of those weird places where I wasn't sure if I wanted to share it. One, because it's private and intimate, right? But two, because I don't want to put out any weird perceptions,
Sure.
of like, man, if you pray it, God will do it. And so I just didn't want to do that. And I very rarely pray um, about winning. I would say I actually don't.
Mm.
And so I'll just give you the context of it. In my quiet time, it says February 14th, 2021. And I read Mark 9:14 through 19. And I just kind of paraphrase. So this isn't me reading the scripture, but I always kind of give a block of overview, And the overview was, a father brings his son to Jesus to be healed. The father has a little bit of doubt because the disciples couldn't heal him. And Jesus rebukes their unbelief, and he heals the child. So that's the overview. And then what I typically do in my quiet time is I pick the best verse of what stood out to me, like what was God speaking to me. And so my favorite verse was 23. It says, "If you can, question mark, said Jesus." He said, "Everything is possible for who believes."
Hmm.
So if you if you fast forward into like what the Father said next is crazy, right? He says, "I do believe, but help me with my unbelief."
Yes. Help my unbelief.
Right? And so that was my prayer, is that I said, "Lord, help me overcome my disbelief." And I do believe, and I have always believed that I could win, and that it's possible. I've always believed that it's possible. Um, but there is an element of unbelief in there. And so in my prayer, and I won't go into all of it because we have kids sick and people need, and so there's a whole laundry list of prayers in here, but I'll get to kind of the meat of it. And is that I prayed for victory in the race, safety, and knowing that he holds it all in the palm of his hands. And I mean, I lost it yesterday when I read it. And like I said, it's not that I hadn't forgotten what the Lord had done. I just forgotten the quiet time that I had because, I just got done going 200 miles an hour and winning the race and all the craziness. So had I not written that out, I don't know if I would have been able to recall that, and so that's why journaling, I think, is super special and meaningful. And yeah, so like I said, I haven't shared that with only about a handful of people, but it's just crazy. And like I said, the context of it, and that's why it's so important to be in the Word, and that's why it says the Word is living and active, right? And that it cuts through, it literally cuts through bone and marrow, right? It's like the living Word, and the context of it was healing somebody, right?
Yeah.
But the purpose behind it was, I do believe, help my unbelief, right?
Yes.
And so that context does fit, right? And so it's just crazy to think about, just all that all at once.
That is a great story, Michael. Our time is winding down, and I wanted to make sure I asked you because you know, in the other sports, you win the biggest game or the biggest match, you get time. You're usually in an off season and celebrate and enjoy. But in NASCAR, that's not how it works. It's the first race. And now you have an entire season ahead of you, including a race this weekend with the Daytona road course. It's the O'Reilly Auto Parts 253, Sunday, February 21st, literally a week later from winning the Daytona 500. You're back in Daytona at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Real quick, just some thoughts on that race and getting right back into it after you've, you know, just won, you know, the biggest, you know, match of your or biggest race of your life.
Yeah, I'm thankful it's a road course. Road courses are strong for me. The worst thing would be to come off a victory and then go to a track that we struggle at. And
Yeah.
so we'll be able to take that momentum. We had a really good result there last year. We had a top 10 finish. And so we'll take that momentum and we'll go have some fun on the road course. And I think that it'll be a great race for us. And really looking forward to it and thankful that we get to go to a road course and not somewhere that's been tough for us in the past.
That's good. Yeah. And you get to get in a car again, which is great, right? Literally a week later, 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox, O'Reilly Auto Parts 253 at Daytona's road course. Michael McDowell, again, congratulations. Thanks for joining us. We'll get you back on in the off season when we can go a little longer and kind of learn some more about all that the Lord is doing. But thanks so much. Congrats and all the best to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.